This is episode number 42 with Carrie-Anne Moss. Welcome to the Melissa Ambrosini Show. I'm your host, Melissa, best-selling author of Mastering Your Mean Girl, and I'm here to remind you that love is sexy, healthy is liberating, and wealthy isn't a dirty word. Each week, I'll be getting up close and personal with thought leaders from around the globe to uncover the habits, mindsets, tools, and rituals that they have used to become world-class so that you can create epic change in your own life and become the best version of yourself possible. Are you ready, beautiful? Carrie-Anne Moss shot to global stardom as Trinity in the Matrix trilogy. As well as being a mega Hollywood actress, she is a mother, wife, and owner of Annapura Living. Though she loves her work, it is her marriage and family that are her deepest callings and have brought her the greatest joy. As a mother and wife, she is able to embody her true self and engage in her most authentic work in this life. She is a student and teacher of Kundalini Yoga, a technology that has changed her life and that she feels compelled to share with the world. Her Kundalini practices have given her a remarkable freedom through discipline that enables her to live a life of satisfaction and nourishment. Her website, Annapura Living, is a call to the modern woman to join her on this journey toward connection to the self and to our surroundings. Carrie-Anne and I were introduced via two different friends who said that we must connect, and boy, am I glad that we did, because this was one of the most delicious and heart-centered conversations I've had. And I can't wait to share it with you because in today's episode, we chat about some mega realizations and discoveries that she has had on her spiritual path before she became an actress, what she learned from her character Trinity in The Matrix, how in her personal life she dances between the masculine and the feminine energy, how she lets go of guilt and nourishes her mind, body, and soul on a daily basis, the power of spiritual awareness, what living through an earthquake and watching her life flash before her eyes taught her, how she navigates her way through Hollywood, the power of elevating others, how conscious parenting and our children can inspire us, why personal growth is the key to loving your life, how to manage your relationships and spiritual journey, how to communicate effectively with your lover, why your imperfections are perfect, how to awaken through your menstrual cycle, how having children and becoming a parent has changed her, how to connect with the moon to supercharge your creativity and productivity, why she consciously chooses to live a toxic-free life, plus so much more. And for everything that we mention in today's episode, you can check out at the show notes, and that is at melissaambrosini.com/42. And without further ado, let's bring on this beautiful, humble, inspiring woman, Carrie-Anne Moss. Carrie-Anne, welcome to the show. I'm so excited to have you here. Before we dive in, can you tell us what you had for breakfast this morning?
Well, I always have tea in the morning. I'm really cutting out coffee. So if I do have a coffee, it's a decaffeinated coffee. And this morning I actually had a little bit of green tea, a shake with some frozen cherries and coconut oil and ghee and maca and raw cacao and water, and then I had a decaffeinated turmeric latte, which was really stunning.
Sounds delicious.
It was great.
So, most people know you as Trinity from The Matrix, and they may not know or be aware that you are a deeply heart-centered spiritual woman aiming to live as mindfully and as consciously as possible. So, can you take us back to a time before The Matrix? Have you always been so devoted to your own spiritual work? And do you think that that influenced you being cast in The Matrix?
I think that like my spiritual path definitely was accelerated when I moved to Los Angeles and became an actor. There's so many modalities of spirituality in Los Angeles. So I moved there when I was 25. So, many years ago. And I arrived there pretty naive and pretty innocent. I grew up in Canada. And as a young girl, I definitely had a deep connection to my own personal spiritual connection, although I wasn't aware of it at all. But I can remember as a small girl feeling very deeply connected to God, and it not being a religious idea. It wasn't anything that anyone told me. I wasn't taught or told what it should be, but I had a very heart-centered connection to this feeling of God, and I prayed to this energy that I felt in my heart, and I felt protected by that. And so I grew up with that in my heart. And then when I moved to LA, I moved there with this dream of being an actress. I've always been incredibly focused and always knew that that was what I wanted to do for work. And it felt like what I wanted to do was, it kind of went through many phases of, wanting to be a movie star, wanting to win an Academy Award, wanting to be famous, all those things that as you're growing up and you're looking at people, I definitely had all of those dreams at different moments. But when I really condensed it down to the truth of really what I wanted to do, I really wanted to tell stories to people. I wanted to be part of storytelling. And I felt things so strongly. I'm very empathetic. And I just felt like my heart just felt like when I acted that I felt like I was aligned with my purpose. And so, I don't know if it had anything to do with me getting cast in The Matrix, although I do believe that, when I would be auditioning and stuff and I wouldn't get a part that I really wanted, I had this philosophy, which was that if it wasn't meant to be, that it wasn't for me, and that I trusted that completely. And my mom always credited that for me able to be in a business that's very difficult and has a great deal of rejection. And she would watch me navigate that. And, there were times when I definitely would cry or be really disappointed, get really close to a great job and not get it, and feel, disappointed, and am I not good enough, and what did I do wrong, and all those things. But ultimately, I leaned on this belief that I chose to have, which was, if my name is on it, it's mine. And if it's not, then it's someone else's journey. And so when The Matrix came, and I look back at it now, I can see how it all was meant to be. And it was, I think that I do embody a lot of the qualities of Trinity. So I know that when the directors auditioned me, that they felt, at least this is what I heard from someone, they might have told me this, I can't really remember, but that when I walked in the room, they just felt that I was the spirit of that character, like that energy of her. And, the rest is not really for me to analyze or try to figure out, but it definitely was a huge blessing in my life, and super grateful that I got to play her. And, now that I look back at it, it's like, playing this warrior woman that also had this really big heart is definitely how I see myself. And I'm always sort of nourishing those aspects of myself, the part of me that's very like woman, mother, nurturer, and then the fierce sort of warrior woman who wants to get stuff done and wants to make a difference. And so I definitely spent a lot of time bringing those two aspects together and balancing them.
How do you elegantly dance between those two roles?
Well, I mean, I think every day I'm learning more about it. And it really is, I think, like right now, my greatest teaching for myself is how do I nourish myself? I really know how to get stuff done. I really know how to, make things happen. And, just for instance, the other day I was feeling really tired, and I'm not used to feeling tired because even though I have 3 children and, I nursed them forever and did night nursing for many years and, had many very exhausting, months of my life. But I'm pretty, if I get a good night's sleep, I eat super well. I don't usually feel tired. And I just felt so tired. It was after the eclipse that we had. And it's interesting because a lot of us are feeling this way, I think. I just felt just wiped out. And I lied down in the middle of the day and I did like this 1 hour, just sort of listening to this meditation on YouTube. And I'm a big Kundalini yoga meditation person. So I meditate every morning. I have a sadhana that I do. But this is just so, a guy saying, relax, and, the world, and the universe, and whatever. I can't even remember what it was. And I did it for like an hour. I fell asleep in the middle of the day, sun streaming through my window. And I'm not one to really have a nap in the middle of the day. And I felt so good afterward. And I thought, wow, it's hard for me to do that because I'm so productive. And, it's part of the reason why I created the website that I have, which is called Annapurna Living, because I was noticing all the women that I knew that we were all just really gunning it and not really nourishing ourselves much. And so it's like one thing to nourish ourselves with good food, which I'm very committed to and passionate about and brings me so much joy, to make my shake in the morning and to have, a tea that I'm making that's got some, elixir energy in it. Like that's easy for me. Like I love that. But to nourish myself mentally, just tell myself it's okay to take a break and put your feet up and have a nap right now. It's okay not to be productive. Production will come tomorrow or the next day. That's new for me. And so I'm trying that on and exploring that for myself. And I don't think we have many good role models for any of this. And so what I try to do, in my own life, I'm working on myself all the time. And that's a passion of mine. I want to grow. I want to be always expanding. But then as a presence online with what I do is I'm really sharing my journey alongside a bunch of other women from all over who are, feeling a lot of the same ways that I'm feeling. And I'm just telling my story so that people can have the women that are part of what I do can see an example of someone who's not telling anybody that they've got it figured out and I'm not portraying any kind of illusion of my life. But giving tools to elevate and uplift and to really thrive in the times that we're living in, because it's very difficult, I think, right now, to not get worn down by the wariness of what's happening. I just feel like women we're so compassionate, we're so empathetic, we hold so much of the weight of the world on our backs, in our hearts. And we are so incredibly strong. And it's so important that we find really simple ways to nourish ourselves so that we can be strong, so that we can keep up. And so, that's sort of my dance that I do every day. So some of the practical things that I do is I have a sadhana, so I have a spiritual practice that I do in the morning. And the earlier that I get up, the better. I'm aching for that early morning, 4:30, 5:30 in the morning, quiet reverent, light a candle, I'm in the dark. I'm craving that. I did that for quite a while, and then I took a break because I was getting really tired come afternoon, and I have 3 kids, so it can sometimes be too much for me. But
how old are your children?
I have a 14-year-old, an 11-year-old, and an 8-year-old.
Wow. And you would get up that time even when they were younger, or is that something that you've just started to do when they've got a bit older?
No, I didn't do that when they were younger. I did everything to stay in bed with them and let them sleep as long as possible. So I always think, like, when you have little babies, I know some people have strong spiritual practices when they have babies, but I just felt like nursing and lying in bed and connecting with them was probably my spiritual practice. I'd say in the last few years, I started to get up early, and then I had a phase, and it's interesting because I'm feeling right now, we're in September, I'm feeling this craving again to do that early morning sadhana. And if I remember correctly, last year it was around this time that I felt that way as well. So it's probably seasonal, just like, we as women are so connected to the moon and the cycles and the rhythms of nature that probably for me, this is that time when I go, oh yeah, I need that. I need that early morning quiet. And then I'll do that for a while, and then I'll feel like I want something different. And I think that's really an awakening that I'm having right now too, because I have a tendency to be very disciplined, and I love that about me. And I think it's important. Discipline is really helpful, but listening to that sort of more feminine way, which is, like, this works for me right now, and now it's time to change. And not be so pragmatic about it, not be so, tight around how it should look and be.
Yeah, that's really, really important. And listening to your own body's innate wisdom and pivoting when you need to pivot and shifting when you need to shift. I think that's something I've definitely improved on over the years. And I would love to hear how, you're so deeply spiritual and connected. And I used to be an actress and I did dancing and TV presenting. But when I was doing it, I didn't have the consciousness and awareness that I have now. So when I was getting all of those no's and kickbacks as I, portrayed them back then, it really did eat away at my soul a little bit. Each time, each no, each casting I went to that I didn't get, it really did hurt. And it got to a point for me where I couldn't handle it anymore. But I am so curious to hear, like, having that awareness from such a young age that you had, and like you mentioned before, you were able to of course, there was times where you may have got upset or things like that. But how important do you think, having that spiritual awareness and consciousness is for not only young women, but for women in this industry?
Well, I think I cultivated it because of this industry. I think it became a necessity that if I really wanted to do this, that I was going to have to figure it out. And so, like, I went to see every spiritual speaker. I used to go to Marianne Williamson every Wednesday evening. This is 20 years ago,
Wow.
And I remember her saying something that, and it's like we take a sentence from one place and another place to just fuel us when we need it. And I remember her saying that for actors, she thought, because so many people in the room were actors, that you had to find a way to know that you were enough when you were sitting on your couch not working. And that's hard when you're an actor. So hard. And that was sort of a mantra for me. And then I had a bit of an awakening. And it's interesting because that word awakening is so popular right now. And yet I feel like I'm on the verge of another awakening right now. And it's part of, it's exciting, like, to know that that's happening. Because I think the awakenings that I've had before have been more subtle, or I didn't really notice because I was new. It was just happening. But I went through and I've shared this before, I went through a big earthquake in LA in like 20 something years ago. And I didn't grow up around natural disasters. I grew up in Vancouver. I know we have a few quakes, but I'd never ever been around anything like that. And while the earthquake was happening, I thought for sure I was going to die. And it was as if I surrendered everything in that moment. And I remember like praying to Mother Earth, and I had never thought of the earth in those terms. Like I wasn't like that kind of person. Like I am now, but I wasn't that person then. I don't know if I'd ever even said the words Mother Earth. And out of my mouth screamed, Mother Earth, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for everything that's happened to you. And I saw, so dramatic, but like I saw my life pass before my eyes in pictures. And I was completely ready I thought, I'm going to die. And I'm sure it was the shock. I'd never been in anything like that. And it just causes your brain to, there's many scientific reasons, and then we can go spiritual. And I always, I kind of veer on the spiritual side. And when it was over, it was very stressful to recover from that stress of that, like that PTSD kind of from that. And what really helped me was that do you remember that book, Mutant Message Down Under?
No, I've never heard of it.
I might have even gotten it at my favorite store, bookstore in Bondi called, oh my gosh, Gertrude and Alice, where I would walk all the way from Coogee any day that I could. That was my workout. I would walk that beautiful walk, and I would go there and have a coffee and just be surrounded by those books. Like I'm just thinking about it right now. I could cry. I wish I was there.
I live right near there.
You live in the most incredible place in the world. I would move there in 2 minutes.
It's magic, isn't it?
It really is magic. But I read that book because I was dealing with some real PTSD. So I had that book, and then somebody else gave me another book. It was a spiritual book. I can't even remember what it was now. I'll have to, it doesn't matter. But in the book, it was something about angels, about having a connection to angels or something like that, and a near-death experience, I think. And what I came away from both those books with was that I didn't have to worry about any of how anything was going to go down. That if I knew that what I wanted to do was aligned with my purpose, like being an actor, like if it was truly from like a pure place of wanting to do it from what I felt was like a pure purpose, I guess, that the universe would give me that. And I just had to show up and do the work. And that I could stop worrying about it not happening. I could stop worrying about another earthquake happening. I could just be free and live my life. And it really took all the stress off of me. And I thought to myself, if I really love acting as much as I believe that I do, then acting in acting class should be enough. And if I'm acting to get other people to tell me that I'm doing a good job or to get validated by getting the job, then I will never, ever be happy. And I decided then, I used to go to Al-Anon, which is a really wonderful program. It's like the AA, but like the other side of AA for people that have been affected by alcoholism, which I think everyone has been in some way, shape, or form. And there's a lot of really good tools in there that really supported me at that time. And I used to think about the business as a big fat alcoholic, and that I wasn't going to look to Hollywood or the business to validate me, to take care of me, to tell me that I was enough, that if I did that, I would never be happy.
What age were you when you had this realization?
Probably around 26, 27, 28.
And was that before Matrix?
Yeah, right before I got the Matrix, I was having a major awakening, my Saturn return, right? Like it's like I was really having a lot of awakening at that time.
Yeah, I've just finished my Saturn's return and it's been huge.
It's so exciting though, I didn't even know that that's what it was. Like I know that now, but at the time, and I look back and, I was just growing in leaps and bounds and lots of things were happening and some of the things were really hard. And all of those things are what makes a life, And so when I think about Hollywood and how I've been able to navigate it, and, listen, I'm still navigating that. And it's not easy. And, as a woman aging in a business that judges you for aging and then judges you for trying not to age, for me anyway, I just have to live my life, feel good about myself, and be about the work and heal all the pieces that need healing, because there's always more to heal, and show up and really, for me, when I go to work, it's always about the work, but it's also about everyone involved in the work. So it's about the crew, and it's about the whole vibration of the whole space. And it's important to me that I elevate that space, not only as an actor, but as a human being. It's almost more important to me that I do that as a human being than as an actor, because there's so many pieces that go into the acting,
Absolutely. I had Neil Donald Walsh, who wrote Conversations with God, on my podcast a few weeks ago, and he says, bless everyone you meet. And he said that every time he walks into a room, he asks, how can I bless these people? And it's such a beautiful thing to remember. And it sounds like that's kind of what you do before you walk on set. You really make sure that your intention is clear, and it would just make such a difference for everyone working on the show or the movie, whatever it is.
Yeah. And just to be clear, like, it's not something that I'm, doing. I'm living that,
Yeah.
And and there's days when I don't want to do that. And there's days when I just want to cry because I read the news on the way to work and I'm scared, I'm not afraid of that either. I'm not afraid of needing support from other people either. And I'm not going and asking for that necessarily at work, but the other day I was at work and one of the camera operators and I were working really late at night, and we were talking, and he was telling me about one of his children and one of the things that his children is going through. And I was listening to him tell me this, and here he is. I would never have known that he was going through a health issue. And then all I could think of was, I know how many hours he works, because the crew work incredibly long hours. And I could only imagine he was telling me all the research that he'd done on the internet to deal with this particular thing that his son had. And I know how many hours that kind of thing takes. And I know his wife is participating in that as well. But I just have so much love and compassion for human beings. And I just felt like so much for him that in talking with him in that way, in work, I was more awake, right? Like, I was more present. I wasn't just rote. I felt more grounded in the earth and the world, because I had this short exchange with this man I see every day at work. And you just never know where you're going to, where you're going to make an impact, or where you're going to be inspired, or where someone's going to touch you, or where you're going to touch them. And it's never like I go into it going, oh, I'm going to be this. It's like, it just feels right to live like that. And I'm totally imperfect in that process. But it's important to me at the core of my soul.
I love how deeply committed you are to the work on yourself. And that must be so inspiring for your children to see, because I was listening to another podcast. Someone was saying that, there gets a point where we start to teach our parents a lot of things when we get to that age. But, my parents have kind of stopped learning and growing and evolving. And that's, it's not important to them. Deeper understanding of who they are just isn't really, doesn't interest them whatsoever. And it used to really upset me, because I just see them and I just want them to grow and evolve. And as a daughter, it must be so inspiring to see your children, to watch you and witness you just showing up and being imperfect, whatever that is. And yeah, it must be super inspiring for them to just show up and lead by example every day.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sure about that, but I think down the road, probably. I think when kids are kids, if you think about, like, I think about when I was a kid and my mom was in the background of my life, right? Like, you loved your mom was like everything, but your life, you were front and center. And, sometimes I think as my kids are getting older, it's like kind of like embarrassing, do you really have to have all that yoga stuff around? Can you eat something? Do we have to eat organic food? Like, and I think that, down the road, that perhaps they will think that. But what I get the most that I see is that my kids inspire me the most because it's the places in me that I think if I didn't have my kids, that I might be able to like just chalk it up to, oh, that's just the way that I am. But because I have them and I'm challenged, it's not easy. There are moments as they get older, it becomes much more, it becomes much more mentally complicated. When they're little, it's like physically, it's physically demanding, but as they get older, it's like really a lot more emotional, mental work. And I really have to stretch. And so I am very imperfect in this area. And I love my kids more than anything. And I know that they know that. And they're really great people. And I just want to, make as much room for them to be able to be who they are. They're going to have stuff to work on. And hopefully I will be able to share with them tools, and other people in their lives will share them tools to get through whatever it is that they will need to get through, because we all will have our stuff. But I get what you mean about, like, there's a generation, I think, and I mean, it's kind of I guess I'm making a generalization, but, I feel like we are so open to like growing, and, my age and your age. I mean, I'm older than you, but I can only imagine not wanting to grow or feeling like, I find that people who are interested in growth really love their lives. And people that don't kind of are waiting for their 2-week vacation and living for that. And then it's never as good as they're complaining because the weather wasn't right. And, they're kind of living in that model. And I'm not interested in that model. And I'm not interested in being like, even pretending that I've got it figured out, because I really don't. But I'm willing to, in the moment, face myself and say, like, what is underneath this? What is this feeling about? What can I do? Do I need to apologize? What is this bringing up for me? And then, I do a lot of journaling, which is a big part of my spiritual practice and my own just well-being. I don't go to therapy. It's not ever really been my thing. I like counseling, like a spiritual counselor for occasional elevation. But I feel that writing in my journal is the greatest medicine for me. I'll write about something that's coming up and keep writing about it. I'll throw it into my meditation or my sadhana and ask to be shown. And then I'll just keep up with my life and keep moving forward. And I find that has been really incredible for me. But I hope that my children look back and think that, I was a good mom, and that that they think, at the core of me, I hope they think I'm like amazing and that I was such a great mom. But I think as mothers, for me anyway, I have to be careful not to get too caught up in that, because then when my children aren't being who I would like them to be, it's easy to feel a lot. And I want my kids to be able to be who they are and not to feel like they have to please me or be anyone other than who they are. And that's tricky, it's not easy.
Yeah. They are beautiful little mirrors for us and, reflections of us. And I have an 11-year-old stepson. So for me, and we have him 50% of the time. So it's so interesting. On the weeks that we don't have him, it's almost like I'm a different person. Then the weeks we do have him, I'm like, whoa, I didn't know that triggered me. Like, that's so interesting. And it's an opportunity for me to dive deeper, which I really, really love. So it's like he is there to mirror me because I'm very good at surrounding myself with beautiful and inspiring and conscious, loving, caring people. All of my friends are very much those things. So it's like the universe is like, okay, well, you surround yourself with beautiful people, but in order for you to grow, I'm going to put Leo there and he's going to push your buttons and trigger you so that you look at things that you need to look at. So they are beautiful little mirrors, as are our husbands. And I would love to hear, how is your relationship? Like, how has that evolved through you diving really deep into your practice? You're so deeply committed to Kundalini yoga and meditation and mindfulness and living a conscious life. How has your relationship evolved, or if it has? And tell us a little bit about, how you guys work together, because I think there's, like you were saying before, there's not a good model. I don't think there's enough good models of what is truly possible in a partnership of two conscious people. And this is what my whole next book, it's called Open Wide, is about. It's about teaching women how to, show up as the best version of themselves first before they can, be in a partnership with someone. And I really would love to hear from you how you guys do life, because I just think more conscious, amazing couples out there need to be elevated so that our younger generation have a model that they can aspire to. Because for me, I watched my parents, and I'm not judging, but there's definitely things that I would like to do differently.
Yeah, and you want to do that differently because of the way they did it. So, there's a gift there, right?
Absolutely.
And I think, I've been married a long time, and my husband is also on a spiritual path. He's a very deep, soulful human being. We approach life differently in many ways and similarly in many ways. And I think the more that I make room for our differences, the healthier. And I think that's somewhere that we as women can get a little caught up in, is wanting it to be a certain way, or wanting them, we have an awakening, and so we want them to have the awakening. Whenever I'm away in New York, I'm in New York right now working, my poor husband, he's got all 3 kids. He's a writer, he's busy, and I'm finding all these things online and sending them to him, right? This particular thing or that, and it's he has no time to read them. and we, and often I'll send him something and he'll watch it and he'll say, that really didn't do anything for me. I can't believe I spent an hour watching that. I know it meant something to you and everything, but I just don't have time. And then other times he'll be like, wow, that was amazing. Thanks for sharing that. So I think that, marriage is a lot of work. I'm super grateful to be married and to be in a committed relationship with someone that I absolutely love and respect. I am who I am today because of the marriage that I have and the relationship that I have with my husband. The moments that have challenged me have made me really grow. I think, whatever we have to deal with as women around men, we work out with our husbands, and especially if we have a good relationship, we can really work that out. And that goes for them too. They've got stuff they've got to work through with their moms or whatever. And, we're all working out our stuff. And it's can we work it out together kindly, imperfectly? So we've been able to do that. And at times it's not pretty. And at other times it's absolute joy and bliss. And I'm so incredibly grateful that I'm married to someone that is so authentic, so creative, so deeply spiritual, but in a very grounded way. I think sometimes as women, we kind of like, I don't know about you, but I see some of my friends like wanting men to be kind of like their best girlfriend. And that's never, I think when you realize that you can't get everything from one person, and that you're not putting it all on your partner, you can kind of take the weight off a little bit. And, my husband is my best friend, and, a lot of times he's the only person I talk to for days and days and days other than my kids. I don't see my friends all that often now that I have kids and I work so much, but, I have friends that I text or I call when I need support in a certain area. I don't put it all on him all the time. I might have done that when I was younger, when we first got together, really wanting that kind of marriage or that kind of relationship. And I tell him everything, but I don't expect him to
be everything.
Yeah.
Wear all the hats. This is exactly what I talk about in Open Wide. We can't expect our partners to be everything. And yes, they can hold space for us, but first and foremost, they are our lover. They're our lover. And yeah, I say in the book, go get your girly catch up fix over there and go speak to someone about that over there. But, consciously making the choice. My husband and I are business partners as well. So we have this roles of constantly going back and forth from business partners to lovers, and we're away from each other at the moment. And I sent him a message and said, darling, I love you so much. I'm so grateful for all the work we do today, but I would love to talk as lovers. When can we talk as lovers today? Can you give me a time where you have switched out of business mode and we can just connect as lovers? And he was like, oh my gosh, I'd love that. So we got some time last night at 7:00 once we'd both had dinner, and we were able to FaceTime, and it was just so beautiful. Because I was aware of it in that moment. I'm like, I was getting a little bit frustrated, and there was a bit of resistance because I was just craving my lover. And although he is my dream business partner, he's my lover first.
That's gorgeous. That's gorgeous. And so good that you were able to say that and that he could hear you. And especially when you're traveling like that, it's important to, be there for each other.
I think it's definitely something I've had to really work on over the past years and through different relationships. Speaking my truth. I call it crystal clear communication. And I talk about this in my book. For me, understanding the concept of crystal clear communication, which is speaking from your heart clearly, has really been powerful. I think us women think our partners can read our mind, but they can't.
Yes.
I would love to hear how you and your partner move through those times when there has been a communication breakdown.
Yeah, I think that regarding communication and marriage and all of that, I think in the beginning of our marriage, for sure, we talked about absolutely everything. And it was kind of a new thing for me to be able to really say what I thought. I know that I'd been in relationships before where I wasn't able to like communicate at all, or I'd be thinking, I want to say that thing, but I didn't know how to say it. So when I got together with my husband, I was really practicing like saying everything I felt. And that was really healthy for me to kind of heal that and to come into this place of really being able to communicate. But I think like now we've been married for so long and we have excellent communication, and sometimes we don't. And sometimes things fester and have to be worked on. But I think because we have such a basis of commitment and relationship and history and love and respect for each other, that we just, the more room that I make for the imperfection of all of that, the easier it is to clean something up. And so I don't really worry if something isn't being dealt with. I know that the time and the place will come for it to be dealt with. I'm also not afraid of just saying, let's talk about this right now, or in the middle of an argument, have that moment of grace where I see that the argument is about nothing that we're arguing about, but about that thing that happened last week, and dropping down into the heart and just communicating and connecting. So I don't really think about it too much, so much as we just live it, and we live it imperfectly. Perfect is one of the things that I talk a lot about on Annapurna Living is, it's so easy to think that everybody else has it figured out, and that, other people have better marriages than you, and that other people, know how to do it all. And it seems so lovely. And yet the truth is, you just don't know what people have. And I think especially in relationships, I think we can easily as women compare what it looks like other people have. I have another thing that I say a lot and that I live by, which is, don't judge your insides by other people's outsides. It's like, you just don't know. And so it really becomes about doing the work on yourself, and hopefully having a partner where you can, help each other grow and be authentic, and not putting too much pressure on it to be a certain way, because I think that's when people start to feel like they can't be free in a marriage or in a relationship, because they feel like they have to be perfect or something. And
that measure of perfect, I think a lot of women, myself included in the past, that I call it comparisonitis, and we can get stuck in this hamster wheel of comparing ourselves to other people, but it is a steep slope, and it's not fun. And when we can just stay in our own lane and continuously work on ourselves and show up in our relationships, that's the best we can do. We've got to let go of this label of perfect. I love what you say, imperfectly perfect. I think that's great. It's so key.
Yeah, I had one of the first experiences that I had with any kind of spiritual counseling was with a woman many years ago. And that's one of the things she had me write on a piece of paper, and I put it in my mirror, being an actor and all of the perfectionism that is put on us as women. And then, then you add to it a job that is based a lot on the way you look and stuff. I had in my mirror, my imperfections are perfect. It was something that I worked hard to embrace. And, not that I worked hard at it, but I brought a lot of awareness to that. And I think as I get older, it's like breathing more into that. And whenever I see somebody that is a public figure, and they radiate beauty that comes not from the stereotypical kind of beauty, where it radiates really from within them, and there's imperfections in the way they look, I feel so relieved. If it's, from their teeth to their skin to whatever it is, their bodies, I just feel like we as women can all just sort of take this big exhale when we see women that we can relate to and that feel authentic. And it's like it's very hard to step into that all the way and own it and be comfortable in that. It's like going really against the norm. I was thinking about that today, about getting in shape, because I really want to be strong and really feel good about my body and feel just really strong from the inside out. And I was thinking how the models that we have for being in shape, as women, it's either it's this really extreme thing that, sometimes verges on feeling anorexic and just not really healthy. Or we have this other extreme where, people don't want to get moving and they don't want to be moving. I don't know. I feel like we're missing this key thing of really having this strength within us and being able to keep up. And I want to be able to, sweat and work out, but I don't want to, I'll be in the room working out and I'm kind of surprised at, and granted I live in LA and I work in New York, so it's a little different maybe because people are very highly, into that kind of scene. But I just feel like it kind of does women a disservice, trying to aspire to something that just isn't even attainable for most people and isn't even really that beautiful even. So I've been thinking about that a lot lately. I just turned 50 and it's like, I want to get into like the greatest shape of my life, but I don't want to work out the way that I used to work out. It doesn't feel right to me anymore. So it's like finding that balance and finding like, how can I really sweat and do that, but not get caught up in this idea, And I use the working out metaphor because it's kind of just a typical sort of place where I see that perfectionism. You see it in women's bodies. Like we're raised, most of us, with that feeling that our body isn't good enough, no matter how great it is, no matter how beautiful it is. It's just something that we're sold basically from being little. And I was even thinking about how we'll see actresses as they age, and actresses that age in a way that's really kind of embracing youth, like look like really skinny and like looking young is like the thing that people give attention to, at least in the media. And, I'm just not interested in that. I'm interested in authentic growth, however old you are. I look at women and I think, are we really aspiring to these ideas that we're getting sold that are airbrushed? And, we all know this conversation and we've all been having this conversation for so long, but I just feel like it just does us such a disservice.
And it comes back to what I was saying before about just staying in your own lane, and I think the older you get, or for me personally, the more comfortable I have become in my own skin and I've let go, and by all means am I not perfect at this, but I've let go of caring so much what other people think. And I come back to the feeling, like, how do I want to feel every day? Do I want to feel vital and strong? And I always come to the feeling, because for me, I have trashed my body. I have slogged my body at the gym, and that's just not how I want to move my temple anymore. I have such a deep respect for this beautiful vehicle that we've been given. I actually was just editing a part in my book about how disconnected we are from our bodies. And, something like our menstrual cycle, we're so divorced from that connection, and we use products and painkillers to really disconnect us even more. And for me, really connecting with my body over the past 6 or 7 years has been one of the most joyful and greatest experiences that I've had. But I've had to really stay in my own lane and not look to my left and look to my right and compare myself to other people. It's been super powerful for me to just continue to remind myself of that, daily.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting because going into your cycle, I think that for a lot of women, their awakening happens through their cycle. It's like when you realize that you have this connection to something greater than yourself through your menstrual cycle, and you suddenly awaken to a whole nother way of looking at life. And I didn't really awaken to that until I started having babies and started tracking, ovulation, and understanding that I had this whole rhythm that no one ever taught me. I didn't really have a connection to, and that connection brought me into, natural childbirth. It brought me into home birth. It brought me into attachment parenting. It brought me into spirituality on an even deeper level than I already had come to. And, it's brought me to my connection to the moon, which is probably one of the biggest tools that I use in my life, is, really connecting to the phases of the moon. And, Now it's just such a, it just is, it's like saying, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, the new moon, waning moon, waxing moon, full moon. It's as familiar in my vocabulary, in my body now. So it's like when the full moon is coming and I feel like, often I feel like, really I'm really ready for a break, And then when that new moon comes, I'm just ready. The new moon's coming up this week, and I just feel ready to start again and to connect to my intentions again. And what do I want, to feel like? And I do the same as you do. It's like my life is based on how do I want to feel? Who do I want to be? How do I want to show up? I was just sharing with some of the women in the inner circle that I offer on Annapurna Living about, showing them what my intentions look like, because sometimes we just need to see it, how people are doing things, because sometimes it's hard to know how to do it when you've been sort of given the idea that intentions are goal setting, and, when I look at the moon and I use that as really the foundation of my life, and I do it in a very practical way. I do it completely like in an urban setting. I do it just by, I wouldn't even need to know, and my body tells me what's going on with the moon cycles. But that's been really exciting and beautiful work for me.
I love that. I talk a lot about that in my book Open Wide as well. We talk about how to chart your cycles and reconnect with the moon, and even try and sync your cycle up with the moon. So you're talking my language. I absolutely love it.
So great.
Tell me, has childbirth and parenting changed you, and if so, how?
Oh yeah, I think that becoming a mother by far has been my most favorite segment of my life. And I say that having had like an incredible segment just before having my children. My career I'd had really an incredible experience doing the Matrix and stuff, and so I'd worked really hard up until that period, and then had my children. And I think when you become a mother, at least for myself. And I feel like we might have talked about this earlier, but I could be wrong. That there are places in my life where parts of my personality that I think I may have never really worked at if I hadn't had children, because it became really important to me. So like one of my biggest, especially when my kids were really little, it was always about, and it's true still, it's like, who am I being? So as we're being bombarded again by all these ideas of our children, and you think that we're dealing with perfectionism as women, wait till you have kids and you're dealing with projecting that perfectionism onto your children. And even if you're conscious and totally awake, it's, hard not to. And there are people, the world is telling you your kids should be doing X, Y, and Z. And you see someone's kid over there, and people are all comparing how much their baby sleeps. There's this whole culture of control around it that I just never could relate to, because that wasn't how I wanted to live my life. But with me, it's like there was a certain place in my life where I could have just chalked it up to, that's just the way I am. Like, I'll work hard on myself, I'll expand myself, but those are just things about me that are just who I am. And then I had kids, and I was like, wow, I really want to transform that, even because I want to be an example. I want to be a healthy example of a human being for my kids, because I know that that's the most important thing that I'm going to give them. Now that my children are older, I understand that part of modeling a healthy human being is modeling going through hard things and falling apart and grieving and crying and feeling lots of feelings and making mistakes and then talking about it and cleaning it up. That's also part of of modeling health, I think.
I remember when I first became a step parent, and I always wanted him to see me like I had it all together. And it really did disconnect us. And it wasn't until I was really real and vulnerable and honest with him that our relationship has not only deepened, but he's learned so much through that, because I can authentically express. So I totally get what you're talking about. And for me, I grew up watching my parents pretend like they had it all together as well.
Yeah, that's what most people are doing. You know, there's a saying in Kundalini yoga, I'm sure it's said in many other areas as well, that you have the opportunity and the possibility of healing 7 generations before you and 7 generations after you.
Wow.
And I feel that every day that's what I'm doing. And when I say that, I'm not saying, you know, I'm not doing anything special. I'm not better than anybody else. I haven't got it figured out, but every day that I connect to myself and I meditate and I pray in a simple, very simple and sincere way, I'm healing aspects that have been passed on to me from my lineage, so that 7 generations from now, my kids will still be dealing with stuff, but they don't have to be still dealing with the same shit, you know? Mm-hmm. And that's really what I see the most. When I see how much I've grown from my family of origin, and I'm still triggered by those by those things within the family structure, you know?
Me too.
Right. I mean, I still am. And then where the real growth comes in, I think, is when you just have that compassion for yourself, for the other person, and you're able to pull out of the drama and see the bigger picture, and you're okay with it, instead of wanting it to be different, holding on tight, you know, cutting off relationship, cutting off your heart, cutting off parts of you so that you can deal with it. It's like having this space, like creating the space, holding the space for people to be human beings. And I think in the past, I was holding people to a lot of perfectionism of ways of being, and even within consciousness. And I think what my children have given me now, like as my kids get older, I mean, mothering is humbling work, man. You know, I always say, like, you know, as soon as I feel like I've got it totally figured out, I'm completely floored and on the floor and on my knees. And as soon as I think I can't take another day, this is really hard, it gets incredibly beautiful and delicious and scrumptious. And it's like I'm just constantly learning and constantly having faith in a power greater than myself that I have, that my children have, and connecting to that, because the world is scary and there's so much going on. It's hard not to project that into every aspect of life. And that's probably my biggest work, I think, as a mother right now, is to have faith for all of us. Because I'm even, you know, worried about just the planet, like not like it used to be kind of like this bigger, like never in my lifetime kind of thing. But now it feels like it's so like right here, right now. And as a mother, it's not just about me anymore. You know, like I always say, like, I'm not afraid of getting sick or something like that. It's your kids you worry about. Like I can handle myself. It's like, your kids, you want to make sure they're safe and that they're okay. And you know, you want the world to be a healthy place for them to grow and move on and have their children and all that. So, you know, motherhood has been definitely awakened me into a whole nother level. And at times, you know, really, really incredibly humbling in a beautiful way. I'm super grateful.
What's one thing you're working on at the moment within yourself?
It's so interesting. Again, we'll talk about the moon because I think, sometimes people, I know probably a lot of your listeners are already all really hooked into the moon and stuff, but, for some people that, it seems kind of silly to them. I'll just talk about it in a really practical way.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. So I woke up like yesterday and really felt like I was really ready to get all my systems together, like to get really get organized and really get really clear and focused. And I have a lot of different business things that I have going on. And I just felt like this surge of energy that I could see that this was the week for me to get clear. Like I just felt like it wasn't my mind, it wasn't my intellect, it was like a deeper thing. And, the moon is moving into Virgo. We're going to have this new moon in Virgo, I think on Wednesday. And Virgo brings all that energy. So depending on where the moon is at, I have an app on my phone that also tells me. And
which app do you use?
I use, I think it's La Luna or I Luna, but then I also listen to one of my spiritual teachers. Her name is Paramatma Suri Sadhana. She has this thing called Space Weather, which is an amazing service. And it's like $30 a month. And she just gives really incredible moon advice and cosmic stuff. But as a Kundalini yoga practitioner, it's like a real compliment to my own personal practice. But so here I really saw like how much those systems, I'm ready to put them into play. Now, leading up to that, I was feeling really wiped out and like needing to have a rest a lot. And I'm not used to feeling that way. I'm a very like full-on human being. Like I really know how to get stuff done. And I start to judge myself when I need to rest, when like I suddenly started thinking, oh, something wrong with me. Why am I tired in the middle of the day? Which is, probably normal for most people, but it was kind of new for me. And, but I had this moment of awareness because I've been working on this for so many years of balancing, the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system, the part of you that, wants to move forward, and the break, basically. Those two qualities are that. And I've been exploring that for the last few years. And so I was thinking to myself, like, why was that so hard for me to give myself? Like, why did it take a whole week of feeling like I needed a rest to lie down and have a rest in the middle of the day and then feel great afterwards? And I'm looking at that and I'm not trying to figure it out. That's the biggest thing that my growth is about, is I'm not trying to fix things and I'm not trying to figure it out, but I'm just bringing it to my awareness. I write about it and I give myself a lot of compassion for the places that I think I should have figured it out by now. And I move through things a lot more gracefully. And so like this week, I feel, excited to put these things into place, and it's really listening to my own inner rhythm. And I think one of the hardest things when you are a mother is that you are holding the rhythm of everyone in your family. And so it's sort of like the analogy I'll use is that I can make dinner for my family, and I know all the different things my family like and meals they love, and what did we have a few days ago. So I want to compliment, not have too much of this and too much of that. And, my son doesn't like mashed potatoes, but my daughter does. And my other kid doesn't like this or whatever. I take that all into consideration when I'm making a meal, and I try to keep it simple. And so it's not like I'm trying to please everybody, but I want to make a meal that my family will love. But often I forget what I want or what I would even want to eat. And so it's like, I'm away from home right now because I'm working and I have one more week here and then I go home. It's like, how do I continue to bring my own rhythm into this life where I am the center of the rhythm? I'm the mother, right? I am holding that space. And I'm not a martyr. I take care of myself. I'm not looking to sacrifice everything. But it is part of the dance of being a modern woman and a householder and a mother. And I work and it's like I'm learning right now, like some of the simple things that I love, like the drinks that I love to drink, and, with the Vitamix and the different adaptogens and simple things that I can drink at 3 o'clock that are healthy and beautiful and give me that little boost of energy when I can't lie down, and remembering that instead of just, gunning it to get my day done. And I have a lot of room right now because I'm away to explore that. And that's one of the things that I've appreciated about actually going away to work a little bit. Because at first it was really hard to be away from everybody, but now I really take it as really growth time to really explore.
I'm sure many women can relate to exactly what you're describing. Let's pretend you have a magic wand for a moment and you could put one book in the high school curriculum of every single school around the world. So this is a book that your children would read. What book would you choose?
Number one, I would just put a darn book in there and hope that one of them would read it, because I was just talking to a friend of mine about this. The addiction to technology is so big, myself included. I'm really, I love reading. I read a lot of educational books, like yogic books, spiritual books. I love a good cookbook with a story in it, but like reading books to like lose myself in, it's almost like my brain has been trained out of that with the internet, with my phone, with my quick fix reading, And so I think it's vitally important that we really get a grip on the addictive nature of this technology. I'm deeply concerned about that for myself, my children, and for the world, for sure. And so I just say, a book would be good. It's funny that I'm actually thinking of like an Anthony Robbins book. It's one of the first books I ever read. It was, Unlimited Power, I think it was. And it's so silly because, then I'm thinking maybe it's autobiography of a yogi, or it's Paramahansa Yogananda. Like I could go like really spiritual. But there's something about that Anthony Robbins book. I think I read it when I was like 19 or 20. And it was like the first time I ever really thought, wow, I can change the course of my life. I can do that. And I think that, and I haven't read it in years, so I don't know if it would still resonate with me or not. But I think any book that can really put the mindset of like you can create the life you want by what you do, what you bring your attention to, basically. I think that's important and something that I'm really grateful. I feel like it was the opening to my consciousness, actually.
And at that ripe age as well, it's such a good age for them to get that sort of knowledge into their mind.
Yeah, and it's so true. Like, for women, I would say, or young women, it's like Women's Bodies, Women's Wisdom by Christian Northrup, to really connect to like your own innate wisdom within yourself, because, we're all kind of hopped up on the idea of the whole medical system for our bodies and stuff.
I absolutely agree. I think they're amazing books. So we can link to those in the show notes as well if anyone wants to check those out. Now, I know you are a mum and a working actress at the moment, and a wife and a friend, and you wear many, many hats. And you probably don't have a typical morning routine or a typical day, but I love hearing about how people prime themselves for their day. So can you share your morning routine? And I know this is probably not the same every day, but are there a couple of things that you do that just really help you set yourself up for the day?
Yeah, it's funny that you asked that question, because that's something that I ask on Annapurna Living too, because that's something that I've always been really interested in. When I was coming up, when I was younger, I would look to people who were successful at something and I would look at what they did, because I think that's, and sometimes I always wanted to write a book about like how to live. Like, I think some of us didn't even know how to like live, because we don't really get taught that.
Yeah.
Yes.
We're not taught it at school. Like, they, they don't teach us these basic things. And I wish I had have been taught the things that I know now. So I love hearing about how people, what they do during the day that really set them up.
Me too. That's what I ask that question of people all the time. So you and I are similar then, because I have that same interest. So my days are, of course, when I'm away working on my own, they're slightly different, but I'll give you a regular day, like when I'm at home, is I get up early and I make lunches for my children.
What time do you wake up?
I get up around 6:00 in the morning. Now, there's times when I get up at 4:30 and I do my sadhana, or 5:30. I try to do my spiritual sadhana before everyone gets up.
Me too.
So that's when my life works the best. But at the same time, I don't hold myself to any rigidity there. I'm very disciplined, but I also have a lot of flexibility in there. So like in the winter, I tend to like to get up really early. And I have to say today, I thought to myself, getting up really early, it's just all a win-win, because you just get so much more done in your day, and it's just such a great way. So I'll get up at, say, in general, unless I'm getting up super duper early, like say 6:00, and I'll go into the kitchen and I'll light a candle. I always light a candle in the morning. And I love the reverence of seeing that light. I feel, and if it's wintertime, I light the fireplace every morning, no matter what.
Oh, beautiful.
And I do my 30-minute sadhana, which has some physical elements to it and a meditative part to it. And I love doing it in the quiet in the morning. 6:30 comes, then I'm making lunches. My kids are now actually for the first time getting lunch at school, so we'll see how that goes. But I still have to put snacks in there, fill their water bottles, wake them up. My husband drives one of our children to catch a bus, and then I drive my other children to school. And then I make them breakfast and drive them to school, drop them off, and then I come home and do Annapurna living stuff or meetings or organize my day. I often go to the grocery store in the morning. I tend to feel like I do a lot of grocery shopping. I try not to fill my days up too much with too much stuff, because I've been working a lot this year. And so when I'm not working, I like to just, I'm in this phase of my life where I don't like to have too much planned. I don't want to rush. I call it I really want to embody the queen energy, the energy of a queen, not the queen, a queen. And my teacher Paramatma says, queens do not rush. When I'm saying yes or no to something and say, there's a timing issue, I tend to really like to err on, I don't want to rush. That's my gauge on whether or not I can say yes or no to something. I say no to mostly everything, because it takes a lot for me to, unless it's something like within my career and like work-wise that is very important, or something like really soulful that I need to connect to. In general, I try to say no, because I tend to, it's easy for me to say yes, but it can end up feeling like I have too much on my plate. And so I want lots of space in my day. And again, we're talking about, I'm not working at this point. Like, this is when I'm home and I'm not working. Because I go like long stretches of time working away, and then I'm home. So when I'm home, I'm like just nesting in. My house smells a certain way when I'm home. I've got my essential oils, going, and I've got my fire going, and I'm, often making a soup or something like that, something super simple. My husband makes me tea every morning, which is a real blessing that I having immense gratitude for, because I see it as a truly sacred act of devotion and love toward me and care. And I kind of appreciate being so grateful for something like that I'm very rarely disappointed with my life, because I'm so grateful for a cup of tea in my hand, my old wood table that I sit at, that I've raised my children at, my journal, my pens, and my books. And a lot of times between drop off and pickup, I'm creating content for Annapurna Living, but in a very kind of very organic way of just like, what am I interested in right now? I'm writing all the time and just sort of downloading like what's coming through me. And of course that's peppered with texts to certain friends that I rely on and that I love to connect with, and hopefully a phone call instead of a text, because I really need to have that deeper connection. And then I pick up my kids and sometimes take them to whatever classes they need to go to, or bring their friends home and make them a snack. And then, we do dinner, and I like to have baths. Whenever I need to, and whenever I have an issue or a problem, everybody goes, "Mom's in the bath again." I've been known to have 2 or 3 baths in a day if I need to. And I bring my books and my journal and everything in there, and the Epsom salt. I'll put coconut oil in there, although I just heard it clogs drains, so I'm going to stop doing that. I'll put some frankincense in there, some peppermint, whatever I need, and I'll just create kind of like this exhale. I think it's important to find those little exhales within the day. And then I go to bed super duper early, because I go to bed with my daughter. I lie down with her every night, and she falls asleep in my left arm, and we lie in the dark, and I tell her a story in the dark, and I did it with my boys, and now I'm doing it with her. And then she often asks me to say a prayer, and I say a prayer and pray. I pray every night, and I have since I was a little girl, that I will have dreams that will give me clarity about my life. And I fall asleep like early, and sometimes I'll pull myself up and hang out with my husband at night. But I really feel like that early to sleep, at least a good 3, 4, 5 nights a week, really make the difference in the quality of my life.
Oh, yeah. What time are you talking? Because I'm an early sleeper as well.
8:30.
Yeah, me too.
I love it.
Sometimes even earlier, because we put our little boy to sleep, and then I'm like, well, everything's done. I may as well jump into bed. And sometimes I'm asleep, like I'm in bed sometimes at 7:30 and asleep by 8.
That's the best. And I find like if I don't go to sleep in that window, it's harder to go to sleep. So, I think I might have told you this when we talked last time. We had a power outage at our house, and it was so nice. And I remember interviewing a woman on Annapurna Living, and she was saying in their family, they have electricity, but at nighttime, they turn everything off and they live by candlelight. And so, and I was like, and she's a very modern woman. She's not like Amish. She's like, she's a modern like householder woman, and I just envied that, because no one in my family would go for that. But when the blackout, when we lost our electricity for a couple of days, I just felt like I loved not hearing the hum of the electricity. I loved the dark. I loved the candles. I loved the quiet. I loved just talking. And I loved having to light fire in order to have light. And, I'm kind of old fashioned, like when I read Little House on the Prairie books, for instance, which I've read a million times, I love them as much as my children every time.
It's so beautiful.
And, there's Pa playing the violin in front of the fire while the girls are all sleeping in their small, cozy house, and they hear their dad playing the violin. Their mom's knitting in the chair, the fire's going. And I feel like that's what I crave, is that kind of simplicity. And I'm never going to live that lifestyle, but I try to bring that into myself. So I light my fire every morning. I walk outside and get the wood, and I bring it in. And it, I live in the middle of the city. I'm not living in nature at this point in my life. And so I try to bring that in. And when I go home, I'm going home next week I've been in New York off and on for 6 months. I decided that I'm going to start, I've been wanting to grow some food for a long time, but we're in a rental house. And so I've been hesitant to do it. And I just decided I'm just going to get planters that I can take with me, and I'm just going to grow like 2 things. I'm going to grow some garlic. I'm going to grow some cilantro. I'm going to grow some carrots, and, just a couple of things. Like, I'm aching to care for something like that.
Yeah, I hear you, sister. I hear you. We live in an apartment as well, and we were the same. We're like, well, we don't have a garden, and we'll just wait till we have the garden. But my husband was like, I'm done. I want to go get some pots. And he came home, and now we have parsley, cilantro, thyme, rosemary, oregano, mint. We have all these things, and it's so beautiful. And it makes such a difference. You know, he goes out there and gets it, and I'm the same as you. I would love a big veggie patch, and that is my dream and my goal one day. But it's funny what you were saying, something about a fire. It's really earthing, and we live our life, like as soon as it gets dark here, we live our life by our Himalayan salt lamps. So we have them we have them in the room, and we have our diffusers going, and we don't have any other lights on. So we have all amber lights.
Yeah, that's so nice.
It's so beautiful. It gives such a beautiful feeling, and that calm, relaxed state is really something that I'm so grateful that my husband was on board with.
Yeah, and you're saying, you think, like you, it's like, how do we want to feel, right? We want to feel that warm glow of that amber light. I catch the glimpse of the candle burning, and I feel like, that's why I light it. I feel a connection to something that is bigger than me, that goes deep into my soul and into my bloodline. And it's like, when I look at the moon, I have that same relationship. I think all of those little things, and if I can, say one thing, it's like living life in those simple, beautiful things, like those little things we're talking about. Those little things can make your life feel so beautiful. And if you're waiting to buy the house, to have the body, to have the husband, to have the kids, to have the career, if you're waiting for all of those things in order to feel really good, I promise you it's never going to happen, because those things are never going to give it to you. And I see that time and time again when I look at successful people.
I'd love to hear, what are 3 things you're most recently grateful for?
My relationship with a new friend that I found in New York a few years ago. So we're a few years in. She's an incredible friend and has taught me about the power of holding space for other people. I'm grateful for my job that I have right now, and having an opportunity to be so creative at a phase in my career where I wasn't sure that I would get to have that. I'm grateful for my body and how incredibly articulate it is to me in telling me what I need and what I don't need.
Beautiful. In your opinion, what's one of the most important things that we can do today for our health?
Well, really understanding like what you're putting in your body food-wise and what you're putting on your body topically. And I'm really good friends with Nadine Artemis, and I really believe
she's been on the show.
Yeah, and so I believe in the living libations. Like I am, I could probably be her spokesperson. Everywhere I go, people are asking me what I use on my skin. And, understanding that connection to what you put in your body, what you put on your body, and getting out of the habit of being addicted to bad ways of being, like under the guise that, well, I'm going to live a little. It's like when you really are healthy and you're eating from a place of true nourishment, you are so turned on by what you're eating and drinking that you never feel depleted. I never feel depleted eating and drinking the way that I do. And yet I don't put anything poisonous into my body, and I would not. So that's really huge.
How do you influence your kids or inspire your kids with that, especially because they go to school and they're probably surrounded by it? So what is your method for navigating your way through that?
Well, when they were little, they lived a very healthy food life with me and all of that. And then, it gets to a place where you really don't have a lot of control over that. And I know some people might
surrender.
They might disagree with me, but yeah, I think you have to surrender. I mean, I'm not that you have to, I'm choosing to surrender and continue to offer what I offer at home and not be too rigid about it, because as much as I'm saying that it sort of sounds rigid in what I said earlier about the food. That's not going to work with my kids. So I have to say that the verdict is still out on that. And I'm hoping that what I always hear, which is that they always come back to eating healthy, will be true. And, my kids in general, eat, they eat the food that we have at home. And when they go out and they're going to make choices. I mean, you can't be on every choice. You can't be controlling it. I think one of the other things that I see a little bit in the healthy food movement is, us organic non-GMO moms, is that our children are filled with far too much information and fear around food as well. And, I don't want to pass that on to my children either. I've seen children at a very young age completely freaked out over eating a genetically modified piece of food or organic piece of food that, it's been passed on by their mother. And I understand, I feel the same way. And my kids definitely have been impacted by me in that way. And I think it's unhealthy to pass that on too. So it's a balance, and it's just giving them lots of, good options and knowing that sometimes bagels and cream cheese are, I would never eat a bagel and cream cheese ever in my life. Like that would never, I don't eat gluten. I'm not interested in eating like that, but my kids really love it. And sometimes, when we were in New York, we would get our cream cheese and bagel, and my kids would have it. And, I have a strong feeling about that. But at the same time, I don't want to be so rigid that I'm creating, you have to really, they say, what do they say? You got to pick your battles. And I see some moms really navigating this great, where they're just, everybody's on board in their family, and they're, my children really want to be in the world. And I can't keep my children from wanting to be in the world, and I don't want to. And so part of that is, all of a sudden my kid wants a Coke. I mean, if you would have told me in a million years that my kid would say, "Can I have a Coke?" I would be like, "You're kidding me. Never in a million years." It's like, it's the perfectly imperfect whole thing. It's a dance. It's figuring it out. It's letting people find their way. How do you feel after you've had that? I mean, I've seen my kids have stuff and really not feel well. Now that's going to teach them more than me telling them they can't have something.
Absolutely. And just continuously leading by example, and you making these beautiful choices, even if you give them the options to have what they want. That's how we kind of deal with this situation in our house as well. We continuously just lead by example, and that's it. Not force anything, just lead by example. And it seems to be working really well. So we'll just go with that for now.
It's all you can be, right? It's all you can be is who you are. I mean, who you are, and show that. And it's like people saying, "I really want my kids to read," but they're not reading. I really want my kids to be of service, but they're not being of service. I really want my kids to care about this and this and this, but are they showing that they care about this and this and this? It's really incredible. Or I wonder why my kids want, all my child wants is like new clothes, and yet the mother's buying new clothes all the time. Of course. I mean, and it's not a judgment about her buying those clothes, but of course the child, it's like my daughter, on her like written report card or whatever, her teacher was just commenting, she brings a lot of things to school. She has like all of her little stuff. Like we go on a trip, she's got like a bag with this and a bag with that. And, she goes to sleepover or a friend's house and she's got all these bags. If you saw me, like just going today to a meeting, I have my knapsack with my essential oils, all my living libations products. I've got my wallet. I've got a juice. And then in my other bag, I've got my journal, just in case I decide to go to a coffee shop and write. I've got the 2 books I'm reading right now, my organizer, my colored pencils, just in case I feel like getting creative.
You are so cute.
And my daughter, I get it. She is modeling me, but it's also like part of her tools in life are all those, that handful of, that pockets full of rocks. And, in her knapsack, it's like, oh my gosh, rocks. And she wants me to keep every rock. So now I've taken like a big planter in the backyard. Instead of having them in the house, I'm just putting them in the planter, It would not be a stretch for a mother to see that in their child and not see it in themselves, even though it's so obvious. And the same goes for my mother and I. The things that I sometimes will say about my mom, and my husband will say, oh my God, you're just like that. And I'll be like, and it's not like, it's like, oh, right, I am in my own way. I'm doing that same thing. And that's life, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So now I'd love to know, what is one of the most important things that we can do today for more wealth? So more abundance in every area of our life.
Well, there's a great meditation for prosperity and abundance that I'm actually that I love and I do quite often, and it's a meditation that really is navel centered in Kundalini yoga.
What's it called?
It's called the Prosperity Meditation. In fact, I'm offering it next month on my collective. I'll share it with you so you can see it and do it. But
yes,
it's like and the it's you're bringing the inhale on the belly. And what I love about the meditation, because I've done it like in cycles, is that where I found it to bring me abundance is that it brings in this strength in my core, not like a six pack. It's not about that. It awakens that center. And when my center's awakened and strong, I can do anything. So suddenly, I'm not overwhelmed anymore. I don't feel like things are too much. I feel like things are possible. And I think that is the key to abundance and wealth.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm not a hustler. I will never be a hustler.
Have you ever been a hustler, or is that?
Never, ever have I been a hustler. I don't want to be a hustler. And that's not to say that I didn't get up when I first started acting at 6 o'clock in the morning and drive to the 6:30, boxing class that was, half an hour away, come home and doesn't mean I didn't do the work, because it's not about just sitting on your couch waiting for all this stuff to come to you. But it's like doing the legwork, being clear about not wasting your time. That's a big thing for me. I can waste my time for sure, especially with the internet. I mean, it's a suck. It's a time suck. So not wasting time, being super clear about what is your gift? What is your voice? Are you in alignment with that? And being authentic with that voice. If you're doing something, in the world that is reflective of you. I mean, it's one thing if you're working for somebody else, right? If you're working for somebody else to sort of get to where you want to get to, you can still be that, and you will start to attract that. I used to work in a restaurant when I was younger, and I was really good at it because I'm a real people person and I love people. And so I would go there, and most of the waitresses, they couldn't stand having kids in their sections. They were just trying to turn tables over as quickly as they could so they could make more money. They were hustling, I was about how can I really make these people's evening wonderful? That was truly my intention.
So beautiful.
And I would make so much money in tips because people were so grateful. That was not my intention. I would get job offers from everybody to work in public relations, to work in sales. I mean, I would be offered so many things because I was attracting that, not because I was trying to get that, but I was really aligned in what I was important to me, that I was showing up in my highest and in my best. And so I think, having a spiritual practice, having a meditation practice early in the morning that grounds you so that you can lean on it, so you can get rid of all the subconscious garbage of your mind that sabotages and gets in the way of success. I mean, I think one of the biggest things for success is if you were to look at my journals, I have every one of them from when I was 11 years old and got my period till now. You would see that for about 5 years, I have journals that are, I deserve success.
Wow. From such a young age.
I deserve to be a successful actress. I mean, I'm talking like maybe like in my 20s now in this, I deserve, I have everything it takes to be successful at what I love. I'm worthy of this. I'm worthy of, I'm all about the work. I'm all about the work. I'm all about the work because, in what I do, it's like easy to get to buy into all of the glitz and glamour that's really not that glitzy and glamorous anyway. But like just focusing in like really I'm about telling stories. And so, everyone does different things for work and I'm a firm believer in doing what you love, and trusting that path. And if you can't make a living at what you love, to find some aspect in your life where you can experience that. So for instance, if you're an actor, being in acting class, and getting up there and having that experience, even if you have to wait on tables, but the waiting on the tables is, you're showing up in your highest there, knowing that it's supporting you getting to explore your craft. Or if you do have that regular job that's supporting you while you're figuring out whatever, that you give that reverence. And if you can't, if it's like really horrible, then find another job, don't be afraid. And, and that's easy to say when, I'm financially able to, I know what it's like to have absolutely no money. Before The Matrix came out, like I thought I might have to go back to waiting on tables, like before that first Matrix came out.
Wow.
Because I was getting offered huge movies, but I didn't want to take them because they were kind of crappy. And, I lived in LA and had like $20 for a while and was like, shit, I know what that's like. And it's like, once you've known what that's like, it never really goes away. That's possible again. And so it's as much as I've had success and I've had abundance and I've had prosperity, I know what it's like to not have it. And so it's something that, you have to continually like be opening to. And at the same time, knowing that all the problems you have, you're going to have even 10 million times more when you have money. And we know so many people who are rich and have a ton of cash and they're miserable. So it's like, I think the more incredible people having a lot of money is just really awesome because they are going to do amazing things with the money they have and be able to really, make a difference. But, having money, doesn't always look good on people. So you might have to clean up some stuff to get there,
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'd love to hear what's one of the most important things that we can do for more love in the world?
Well, I guess it really comes down to loving yourself. I mean, it's so cliche, but you just have to always bring it back to yourself. Like, who am I being? What am I doing? How am I showing that? How am I talking to myself in my mind? How am I treating the person in the grocery store? How am I, treating other people, my children, my parents, my husband, and just continually going back to who am I being? And because it's overwhelming to, it's great to want to save the world. And I kind of took that Mother Teresa quote like really seriously, which was, take care of your own family. And, now I'm at a phase where I'm ready to reach out and get a bit more global with my activism and my that part of me. But it really does start with who you are and how you treat yourself and how you treat other people. Because we've all seen that spiritual speaker that gets up there and talks the talk, but then snaps and is rude to the person that works for them.
Yeah.
Like I'm not interested in that. I'm not interested in someone I don't doubt that person has something valuable to say that I can learn from. But when I see that's not balanced, like it's not real, that person, how they are up on stage, and then when they're in their real life, and I'm an actor, so that's what I do for work is I look at behavior and and understand like all that stuff. If it's not aligned, I'm not interested in that person.
So
and that's not to say that it's not to say that maybe one line they said at something was something useful that I can put in my back pocket or in my heart pocket, but I'm certainly not going to look to them for how to live my life.
Comes back to what we were saying before about looking at the successful people and, mimicking what they do, for someone who's up there, and then maybe there's an incongruency with who they are being in their everyday life. It's like, okay, well, maybe I won't, follow that path.
And it's not that they need to be perfect. It's not about that. I love imperfectly perfect people, but there's one thing to be saying one thing and showing a certain image and then completely not living it.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that happens a lot in the spiritual community and the yoga community. And, and it's really, I think it's such a relief when people really like tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the reasons why I created what I created online, was just that I really wanted to show that, kind of bust that illusion, bust that illusion.
Yeah. And be real.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love that about your work. I absolutely love it. I've stalked a lot of your website and it's really beautiful. And I just love how authentic you are and honest and vulnerable. And that makes me lean in. That makes me, want to hear more from you. And so you definitely inspired me in that way. The more you just speak your truth, I love that about you so much.
Oh, thanks.
I have one more question for you. I would love to know how I personally and the listeners today can serve you. What's one thing that we can do to serve you in any way? Like, how can we be of service to you? One of my main intentions in life is to serve and help others. So is there anything that we can do to serve you?
Just being your authentic self is so inspiring to me. And I stalk people's stuff too and look for that glimmer of gold. And so it's just really about being authentic and being that is just so inspiring to me. I feel so excited when I see, especially women younger than myself, stepping into their grace and their grit and their power. It fuels me. It makes me, and I have a lot of women that, reach out to me and will tell me something that I said or something that I did that inspired them, and that really means a lot to me and really, keeps me going, because I really believe, like when I started, for instance, with the Annapurna Living, I was like, if I could just help one person, then that's really in my mission statement, is like helping one person ease their life a little bit or give them a breakthrough, help them that way. And so I think globally, if we reach out, not to me, but reach out to people that do have inspired us that way, like to take the time to say, thank you for that to whoever. I think we sometimes rush through and we don't tell people.
That's so true.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really beautiful. You've inspired me. I'm going to go and thank a lot of people who've inspired me. And I'm not going to do it all in one day.
And maybe write a letter and it'd be kind of old school, because I feel like, a text is really nice too, but I don't know. I'm just hoping that we don't all just get so disconnected through technology. It makes me teary. Like it worries me. So I hope that we can all like really wake up to the fact that we're really so dependent on this technology, which is so great. And look, we get to talk from Australia to New York, and it's so many great things about it, but to really remember how important it is to have that human contact.
Oh, yeah, it's so important. And I'm just so grateful for this beautiful conversation that we've been able to have through the technology. I'm very grateful. I'm old school and I still send snail mail thank you cards to my friends and family members. So that's something that's really important to me. But before we go, I just wanted to acknowledge you and thank you for being a voice, for women. Your work is, like I said, it's so inspiring and so vulnerable and authentic and honest. And that's one of the reasons why I was so drawn to you. And we had all these people trying to connect us, which I was so grateful for. Everyone's like, you've got to get Carrie-Anne on, and all these connections. So I'm very grateful for your time. And you are definitely one of those people that walks their talk. And you have been so gracious through the technical issues that we've had trying to record this interview, and we've had to do it over 2 days. And if I'm really honest, there's some people that have lost their cool when that has happened, and you have just been so incredibly gracious, and I'm beyond grateful. And thank you for the work that you do in the world with Annapurna Living. We'll link to that in the show notes, and I can't wait for you to share more of that side of you. Like you said, I'm really excited, and just thank you from the bottom of my heart. This has been such a pleasure, such a beautiful conversation. And you have to let me know if you ever come back to Australia.
Oh yeah, believe me, we're coming. Our dearest friends are the Dado family, and they just moved back there. So we are planning as a family to come and see them. So yeah, we'll be back for sure. Thank you so much. It was really a pleasure.
Thank you, beautiful. What a beautiful, heart-centered, inspiring being. I don't know about you guys, but I got so much out of today's episode. And if you did too, please subscribe and leave me a 5-star review, because that means that we can inspire even more people together. And don't forget to tell me on social media, either on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, who you would like me to have on the show. And for everything that Carrie-Anne and I mentioned in today's episode, you can check out in the show notes, and that is at melissaambrosini.com/42. And you can also check out all my other episodes there too. And whilst you're there, please sign up to my newsletter so that you will be the very first to know when you can pre-order my next book, Open Wide, which is very exciting. Thank you, my darlings, for being here, for wanting to be the best version of yourself, and for showing up today for you. You rock. Now, if there's someone in your life that you can think of that would really benefit from this episode, please share it with them right away. You can take a screenshot and you can text it to them, or you can share it on your social media. And until next time, don't forget that love is sexy, healthy is liberating, and wealthy isn't a dirty word.